Well, welcome back to Afterburner on Flames Nation, Lunar New Year game for the Calgary Flames at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And there's a reason we're starting with that. It is the year of the snake, the wood snake in particular. So what does that mean? The wood adds a layer of growth, creativity, and flexibility, making the snake more adaptable and open to change. Just as the snake sheds its skin, this year represents the opportunity to renew oneself, embrace new possibilities, and leave behind outdated ways. Such is the story of the Calgary Flames under general manager Craig Conroy, a massive trade allegedly in the works that would send Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Peltier, and a couple of picks to the Philadelphia Flyers in return for young forwards Morgan Frost, a center, and Joel Farabee. Not to be overshadowed is a 4-1 win for the Calgary Flames over the Anaheim Ducks and a hat trick, the first NHL hat trick for one of the team's brightest young stars. I'm Cami Kepke, joined by Mike Gould. Thanks for watching Afterburner tonight, folks. This show, as always, brought to you by Bet365. And if there's ever a time to work the super chat to have your opinion and your questions heard, it is tonight. Of course, our super chat charity partner is Youth Centers of Calgary. You want to make sure anything you want to say gets in the show. Hit us with that. The proceeds support YCC, a place where kids are welcome and accepted as they are, a place where they get to have a break from the chronic stress that is the reality of many of their lives and flourish through connection and fun. Well, Mike, when did you know that this night was not going to be like any other?
I mean, I had an inkling before the game. Kuzmenko being a late scratch, not taking warm-up. As soon as that happened, there were alarm bells going off, and there were texts that were being sent, and there were people saying to me, there's something to this. And obviously, that became quite apparent throughout the night, and it became something that has been discussed already at length, including on this very channel. It is something that I think the Flames can be really happy with. It's a deal. I mean, like you said, Cami, in that script, I don't know if you practiced that or if you memorized all those words.
What do you think I was doing while you guys were talking to Frank?
that was pretty impressive. It is a deal that will bring some change to this Flames team, and I think it's a deal that, I will say this: when things were first being talked about, I thought the Flames might be trying to get Morgan Frost, and it became pretty apparent that he was going to be coming this way. I did not think they were going to get Frost and Joel Farabee. That's the angle of the deal that is really surprising to me. That's the angle of the deal that I think is really impressive to me, that the Flames are able to get both these guys, because, you think these guys have been pretty well regarded in the Flyers system for a long time. So much so that, there were always those persistent rumors that Johnny Gaudreau might be going home. And when that was even, a glimmer in the eyes of fans here in Calgary, these were two of the guys who I was sort of saying, I'd like Calgary to get those two players. I'd like, maybe one of them, maybe two of them, and both of them in a potential Johnny trade. Of course, we know how it went. He left for nothing. But to get these two guys a few years later under these circumstances, not something I was expecting coming into tonight.
It's interesting. We'll break down a little bit more what this means for the Flames. You had a chance to catch up with Daily Faceoff's Frank Seravalli while the game was still going on. So we'll get you to recap some of that. But first, we're going to take you through this blow by blow. As you mentioned, the first inkling that something was afoot, something was rotten in the state of
Alberta.
Ramsey.
The state of Alberta and the province of Alberta.
Well, the first moment we had an inkling that something was up was when Andrei Kuzmenko was a late scratch. That immediately had everyone going to their cell phones, going to Twitter/X. And then Jacob Peltier leaves the game, and it's announced by the Flames that he will not return that night. Now, across North America, way off on the other side, a couple time zones away, Morgan Frost benched.
Yeah.
Then now the Bloodhounds really have their nose and ears perk up. And that's where we start to see people scouring to see how do these teams fit. And then Frank and Elliot, a myriad of insiders breaking it down as it goes. The return, as it stands right now, appears to be 25-year-old center Morgan Frost, Joel Farabee, and of course, Kuzmenko and Peltier going the other way with a second and a seventh. Which year is that seventh again?
It's a 2028 seventh-round pick. I have no idea how or why that was negotiated into the deal, if it's just an IOU or a favor, but it is a 2028 seventh-round pick. And both the picks the Flames gave up in this deal are their own picks. So it's their own second-round pick this year, 2025, and it's their own seventh-round pick probably the first 7th round pick that has been traded in the 2028 draft.
Yep. Shout out to Arthas in the super chat there. Hubie lost a son tonight. Offer some T's and P's.
I hope
for him.
I hope Huberto is okay. I mean, I get the sense
Hey,
he really
you know
liked
what?
him.
Yeah,
They were good
Huberto's having his
friends.
best season as a Flame. Even last season when things weren't going so great for him, there was a time where Peltier seemed to be the sauce that got him going.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I wish Jacob really well too. He's a really, really good guy. A guy who I've had the opportunity to interact with a little bit, covering the farm team here in Calgary and back when it was in Stockton as well. Really nice guy, really good family. Just a guy who I wish all the best in Philadelphia. I don't remember the last time that a trade went down like this, just in such slow motion. Not even so
Not
much.
even Hannafin?
Well, but my point more so like, that one was, we knew it was Hannafin, we knew it was Miramonov, and then all the rest kind of came out at the same time. This one was one where it's each individual piece kind of got its own break. It was, we know Kuzmenko is going, okay. And then half an hour later, we know that Peltier is going. And then we kind of have an inkling that it's Frost. And then we hear that it's Farabee, all sort of one after the other, sort of 20, 30 minutes apart. I mean, I thought for the longest period that this was going to be a Kuzmenko deal where, you know, I was hearing potentially a 3-way where I thought it was going to be Kuzmenko going to Philly to unite with Michkov, and the Flames were going to pay somebody to retain part of the salary. That was sort of the first reaction that I had. And then I get a text from somebody really close to Jacob Peltier who says, okay, Peltier's in this deal too. And I'm saying, whoa, what's going on here? And that sort of makes me think it's, you know, maybe those two for Frost, and that sort of evens out. Farabee being in it too, and then the picks, Calgary not giving up a first-round pick. It just all coming out sequentially like this. A very memorable night.
Yep, all part of the Craig Conroy game plan. Another shout out to Mitchell in the super chat. New dome chant when appropriate. Clap on, clap off. The Klapka. Maddie with the natty hattie. Looking forward to the spark from new forwards coming in. Wolfie, fire. Wolfie, always fire. And we're going to get to Adam Klapka. I thought he had a fantastic game tonight.
Agreed.
But key for the Flames here, you got a huge return. It's about 7.1 mil in salary that the Flames will be taking on, with 6.3 heading out. But these were two players who you could have lost for nothing.
Agreed.
Kuzmenko, a UFA at the end of the season, and frankly, who would have wanted him? Up to a couple of weeks ago, it looked like the Kuzmenko experiment was just going horribly wrong. He came to Calgary needing a reset after his time in Vancouver. It looked like he needed another one now. And Jacob Peltier on waivers just a month ago, and then came roaring back. So it's massive that the Flames were able to get anything, let alone a really key piece in a centerman, a second line centerman.
Yeah.
That was really missing from the framework of this squad and frankly, the farm team as well.
100%. There's a ton of different implications here. I believe the Flames are going to be making this deal official here within minutes. It'll be posted officially. They are holding off on conducting any media availabilities post game until it is announced. So my understanding is it's going to be here pretty quickly. And Craig Conroy will address the media tonight. That's what Eric Francis is saying. So we will have some additional perspectives. They might be flowing in as the show here continues. I am really impressed. I mean, talking to Frank just now, the perspective on the Philly end, which I'm really curious about, and what he sort of said to Pinder and I is, it's Philly wanting to just cut bait with these players. They're players that Philly is kind of finished with. And from my understanding and just sort of seeing the Flyers remotely, these are two players who are quite close with each other. Like, from, you know, the way that I see it, it's not dissimilar to the bond that Mangiapane and Anderson kind of had, sort of similar fraternal, or not fraternal, but brotherly bond in Philadelphia. So coming here, going to be interesting to see if they, you know, play on the same line. That'll be something really to watch for.
That's fair. Were you ever in downtown Calgary if you did not see Andrew Mangiapane and Rasmus Anderson ripping around on scooters?
Yeah, well, it's the aspect of it where these are two guys who were drafted back-to-back first-round picks. And, you know, you see that a lot. You see it. We saw it with Peltier and Zary. We saw it, you know, the one that comes to mind is Will Smith and Max Celebrini in San Jose. These guys get really close. So I'm not surprised to see this be a package deal. And the points that you make about Kuzmenko, I don't know what his value would have been on his own. I don't know how many teams out there would have even been interested in trading for him.
If it doesn't work in Philly, is there another
I
stop
don't
for him
think
in the
so.
NHL?
I don't think so. And I think the Philly case is a special case because they have Matvei Michkov. And
Yep, they did play together on St. Petersburg in the KHL in the 2022-23 season. He also just fills a little bit of salary for Philadelphia with these players coming out. Him being was a 5.5 still.
yeah,
Yep, that's a fair amount of salary for what you get in Kuzmenko. There's like when the offense is there, it's there, but when it's not, buddy, better hope he's not in his own end.
yes, agreed. And also on Kuzmenko, it is interesting to me. I made the comparison on the show, and I'm not, saying they're the same player, but in terms of pre-trade production, Morgan Frost is not dissimilar to Elias Lindholm when he came to Calgary. Sort of a 40-point guy who bounces around in the bottom half of the lineup and doesn't really have that foothold. And it's interesting to me, just on a sentimental level, I suppose, that Frost is coming to Calgary as part of the Elias Lindholm trade tree. Isn't that something? Because Kuzmenko, of course, acquired for Lindholm, and then you go back to Dougie Hamilton, and it's really interesting. I mean, we've heard so often that centers are available only for a premium. And to me, just my first reaction tonight, I don't know if Morgan Frost is going to be a core piece or anything like that. He's the more interesting piece in the deal to me, and I like Joel Farabee, but I think Frost is the more interesting piece coming to Calgary. But to me, getting Frost for this package does not strike me as a premium.
And now, okay, so maybe you're not looking at them as core pieces moving forward. Let's put it this way. I'm curious, how would you compare the potential ceiling of two relatively young guys coming in from the Flyers to what the ceiling for Peltier could have been if we take the emotion out of it? Because obviously he brought so much energy. He was a fan favorite. He was really coming on in the last couple of games here. But how do those ceilings compare?
I think the ceiling for Jacob Pelche, and I like Jacob Pelche, I think the ceiling for Jacob Pelche is what these two players have already done in the league. I think both these players have been at best 45 to 50-point players, and I think the Flames would have been absolutely thrilled if Jacob Pelche had turned into that. And this is a player who 3-4 months ago was on waivers. He went unclaimed, and I think it was a mistake that he went unclaimed. I think there is the potential for this player to be a Paul Byron, Jesper Fast, Carl Hagelin type guy in the NHL. But I don't know if I would have ever penciled this guy in as a top 6 forward in the long term in a best case scenario. And I get it. There is upside. This guy was a first round pick. He's younger than both the players who were involved in this deal coming to Calgary. I just don't know if I would be there saying Pelche for Frost, 1-for-1. Who do you take? I don't think I'd say Pelche. Pelche for Farabee, 1-for-1. Who do you take? I don't think I'd say Pelche. And so that's ultimately where I stand. And that's not an indictment on Pelche as a player because I really like that player.
How big of a win is it for the Flames if there is in fact no salary retention involved?
Yeah, that seems to be the takeaway here. I think it was LeBrun who indicated as much. And it being relatively even makes me, I think it contributes in that it allows the Flames to retain their retention slots at the deadline in case they have a taker for any of their pending UFAs who wants that player at even less cap charge, or it allows the Flames to be a broker or to take on a bad deal with some retention. I don't know exactly how it's going to pan out, but I like it. I would have considered it more of a win if they hadn't gotten Farabee and maybe it was a smaller deal and you're looking at Kuzmenko. You're retaining a little bit there. Maybe you don't prefer to do that because Kuzmenko to Frost is quite a downgrade in cap. But Kuzmenko and Farabee both being in the deal means there's 5 million guys on both sides. So it evens it out a little bit, but it does add a little bit more flexibility for the deadline.
And even just the pieces aside, how wild is it to see trades go down mid-game? You
It's
just don't see that much. Weird that the Flames have been in on more than one of the more recent ones. I think Mike Camilleri was the first one that I ever saw. Yeah, Camilleri 2.0 was the first one that I ever saw go down in real time. And it was just like, what is this? I think Matt Duchene from Colorado, leaving Colorado would be another recent example of it.
Yeah,
recent is probably like 8 years ago now, 7 years ago now.
There's something about January for this Flames team. They love making deals in January. The Phaneuf deal was in January. I believe the Doug Gilmour trade was in January. The Camilleri trade that you mentioned was in January. and the Lindholm deal last year was a year ago tomorrow. So there's something about this month. We maybe should have been on higher alert. It is fascinating to see Pelche pulled from the lineup mid-game. The fact that they did not immediately mention the reasoning behind Pelche being pulled. Usually they'd say it's a lower body, upper body. They didn't say anything. They said forward Jacob Pelche will not return to this game. They never made any comment about Kuzmenko's status whatsoever. And I know the Flames, you know the Flames. If Kuzmenko had tweaked something in pregame soccer, they would have tweeted something at the warm-up. They would say Andrei Kuzmenko, lower body, will not play tonight. So,
and weirdly, because of it, Kevin Rooney played in his 300th NHL game.
Hey, good for him. Good for him.
What a way to get the milestone.
Won. Yeah. So it's a fascinating deal. It is a deal that just really surprised me. I mean, I wasn't surprised to see it go down after Kuzmenko was pulled, but the result is not something that I would have expected when I woke up this morning.
Yeah. A lot to stomach. Of course, nothing official yet. I see you've got X up there refreshing furiously to wait for any official word to come down. Oh, I almost need to wash it down with a little something, all of this news. It's maybe a nice crispy afterburner pale ale. Ooh.
Perhaps.
Brought to you by Origin Brewing. You can ask for Origin malting and brewing products at your local liquor stores, favorite pubs, restaurants. If they don't have it, just request that they bring it in. They use barley grown on the local family farm to offer a truly sustainable grain-to-glass experience. And 5 generations of farming means that you not only get intentionally chosen ingredients, but also roots that run deep in the community. They believe it's all about blending tradition and innovation for a truly unique experience that proudly celebrates Alberta farms. That's Afterburner Pale Ale. And we still have a lot. We haven't even touched on the game yet, Mike.
Not at all.
4-1,
you know,
by the way. And it did not start great for the Flames. It was actually Vetrano breaking the ice with, as one does, a shorthanded marker. Lacombe with the assist. He actually leads Ducks defensemen in scoring right now, but Martin Pospisil getting picked off as the Ducks migrate the other way. But after that, it is all Flames. They strike just seconds into the second period. Bean gets the puck up to Pospisil, and it's a broken play, but it is a dandy. If we get the video queued up here, Adam Klapka used every inch of that frame to pull the puck around. That's in against Gibson to tuck it in.
Well,
honestly, like, Gibson's a big guy too, but he made him look about as tall as Dustin Wolf on that play.
I'm so happy for Adam Klapka because Pinder and I were not all that kind to him on the last show that we did. We said that he didn't really stand out, and I questioned whether he was going to stick around in the NHL. And if he keeps making plays like that one, which we have seen him make many, many times in the American League, he'll have no problem. I mean, Adam Klapka, the word that was used to describe him in an interview with me last year was a golden retriever. He is a real nice guy. He's a really great teammate, especially, he has been with the Wranglers and now coming up to the Flames. And seeing that goal, I mean, that's the upside that the Flames want to see. Just a matter of continuing on it, because when he's making plays like that, that's tough to stop.
I mean, that's the one he scored on. He had plenty of really nice plays out there tonight. Ends up with 13:46 of ice time, 19 shifts, 4 shots, a block, 8 hits, and a lot of really strong play out there. So that's Adam Klapka tying the game up. After that, we have some history between two of these players. One of the newest members of the Anaheim Ducks after another major trade this season.
Yeah.
Mr. Trouba has entered the conversation.
Another player I was surprised to see anybody trade for, quite frankly, Jacob Trouba, given the size of his contract. And he gets into a little brouhaha with Nazem Kadri, with whom he had a run-in, I believe, 2 seasons ago at Madison Square Garden.
They've had multiples.
Yes,
they've had multiples with Trouba as a member of the Rangers. And Kadri, he had one, I think it was it last season or the season before, where he actually took Kadri's helmet off. That was near the new year. That was a classic game. Oh,
I remember I was at Place Belle in Laval at the AHL All-Star game, hanging out with Dustin Wolf, and I got the notification, and it was like, whoa, that's a nasty hit. And tonight, that certainly does not seem to have been forgotten. kind of set the tone on a very strange and emotional night here in Calgary. One that continues. They have finally started doing post-game availabilities, but not with any of just with the players. They have already cleared out Jacob Pelche's stall in the Calgary Flames locker room.
Oh gosh, that's sad.
Which is
Life comes
sad.
at you fast. I wonder if they have Twitter on the bench iPads.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
You
Or
think?
at least they probably like jailbreaked it in there somehow. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like some fan, maybe
Yeah,
not the fans in
put the
Calgary,
phone up
they'd be
against
there
the
with the
glass.
phone trying to see what's there.
Yeah. Guess what, guys? I mean, you know who benefited a lot from the extra forward slot tonight was Adam Klapka. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? He plays that much. Jacob Pelche played 5 minutes in the first period. It was on pace for a pretty hefty night again in a plum spot, and Klapka is the beneficiary. And you know, he was right in the thick of it all night.
Yeah. So we follow that up. The Coronado puts the Flames ahead shortly after this. It is a late zinger, and who is paying the price? Jacob Trouba. Turnover. Bounces off a duck. Coronado makes a nice tight turn and just rips it from the high slot.
This is nasty. I mean, this is just downright filthy. In the last minute of the period, this is the exact kind of goal the Flames have been burned on so often in the last couple games. They got burned on it in Winnipeg, giving up that backbreaker against the Jets to Gabe Vilardi. And now Coronado just returns the favor. I mean, this is a guy, again, another guy who has improved just fantastically this season, and the start of a huge night for him. Again, an emotional night across the board, and Coronado just it's going to be interesting to see. Will they put Coronado with Morgan Frost? The thoughts are already sort of going through your head. It's exciting.
Don't get too far ahead of
We
yourself
won't get too far
Michael.
ahead.
Not yet.
We'll see.
So Flames bookend the period with a goal in the first and the last minute. Takes us to the third. KQ, you're having duck for dinner? Put a fork in them. They're done.
They are done.
Thank you. Gibson misplays a puck. Blake Coleman quietly having another just really solid season with the Flames. He gets enough on it that it pops out to Matt Coronado and snipes his 13th of the season to make it 3-1.
Yeah, this is a play that or what's his name, John Gibson is going to want back because it just does not go the way he wants it all. You can see he's trying to put it off the corner. I would maybe go on the back end to the other side.
Wolf even had a nervy pass in a situation like that earlier in the game.
Yeah.
He got it away in time.
It's the sort of play it feels like we've been seeing more and more this year. I feel like we've been seeing a lot of near misses and gaffes in net.
A throwback to the Jacob Markstrom days, perhaps?
A little bit. And Matty, Johnny on the spot. I mean, that's the exact kind of goal the Flames have been aching for all year, where they just get the break in tight and their guys able to capitalize. And a freebie kind of seals the deal in a sense. I mean, it wasn't over, but tough for the Ducks to come back on a night where the Flames were playing pretty nicely structured hockey.
Well, if that didn't make it over, Coronado with the empty netter, first NHL hat trick, caps it off. It's a game that the Flames needed to win, and they got it done. They were close against the league leaders in Washington. They were not so close against Winnipeg over the weekend. So this one was big. You don't have that many games left before the Four Nations break, and this win allows them to at least temporarily jump Vancouver and get back into that second wildcard spot, because again, you can't count on Vancouver to help you out. Every now and then it looks like they're going to completely implode and open the door for Calgary to just walk on through, but no, they're still going to have to fight for it every night to the end.
Yeah, I think Utah's goose is truly cooked. I think St. Louis is not far behind them. I don't really consider either of those teams contenders to make it at this point. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. The Canucks and the Flames, it's really going to come down to these two teams, I think, barring something completely unexpected. The thing is, if Anaheim had won tonight, they would have actually moved into a tie with St. Louis. That's how far back St. Louis and Utah are in the standings at this point. Yeah, the Flames have put themselves into a nice position. And you know what? Now we can sit here and say the Flames might actually be stronger down the stretch because, I mean, really, we're still processing it. They've just added two guys who might be top six forwards for them. Really, when if things pan out the way
that would certainly be the expectation.
That's the way. Well, that's the thing, right? And maybe really good top six forwards. If Craig Conroy, if this deal goes the way that Craig Conroy wants it to, the Flames have just added two top six forwards. And I think if you're looking at it, Andrei Kuzmenko and Jacob Pelche have both been played in the top six sort of by default at times this season. I would think you could say not ideal circumstances for the Flames to have those two guys in the top six.
We've seen some mid-game line shuffles that happen to produce great results, and the team goes, okay, let's stick with this going forward. Calgary also got some positive news today with Ryan Huska saying that Connor Zary could be skating not hard, but back on the ice in the next week or two here.
Farabee, Frost, Zary. You add these three guys to your lineup, and what do you look like down the stretch, especially when your main competition is a team in Vancouver that has been rumored to be subtracting guys this season? So I'm really curious to see what happens. I will be interested to see, because all the rumors have been that the JT Miller saga will end in maybe an underwhelming return for Vancouver. At the end of the day, are we going to see it be the Kuzmenko trade nets Calgary a larger return than the Canucks get for JT Miller? Wouldn't that be funny if that's the circumstance that ends up going down? Obviously, Calgary giving up a little bit more than just Kuzmenko here. But
well, I mean, if you think about big name players that were going to go no matter what, Taylor Hall, Adam Larson.
Yeah.
That was largely regarded as a fleecing.
Yeah.
At the time, just because people knew Edmonton needed to move this guy. And they needed to get a defenseman back.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vancouver's dealing from an enormous position of non-leverage at this point.
No,
like, I think they've got nothing going for them in terms
of leverage. Every other GM has them in a mousetrap.
Exactly. So I think I would not be surprised. I would be surprised to see Vancouver get players of this caliber back for JT Miller. Maybe they will. I would be surprised if they get two of them. And that's sort of what Calgary got tonight. And it's just surprising to wrap your head around. To me, Calgary upgrades on both the players they gave up. And they did that for the cost of essentially a second round pick.
Do you think Calgary is done making moves?
Maybe. I didn't think they were going to make much of any move mid-season, really. I thought they were going to wait to the summer to make big moves. And that's sort of been the consistent messaging, and it's surprising to see this go down the way that it has. But I think it's extremely encouraging. I think it's a deal that does not kill the future. I think it's a deal that sacrifices very little future upside for this organization at the benefit of bringing in players who, if utilized properly, if developed properly, could become really important to this team.
We haven't even talked about Dustin Wolf yet.
No, we haven't.
Really? He was great tonight. He's been great many nights. Earns his 19th win of the season. He saves 30 of 31. That's a .968 save percentage. And I mean, one of those is a pretty tough shorty that he's going up against. So it's yet another impressive performance, especially when you look late in the game. There was a moment where about mid-third, so it's still 2-1 Flames at this point. The Ducks were piling it on like crazy. There were moments where I was shocked that they didn't manage to score, and Wolf just stayed so poised through some of those crazy scrambles against a Ducks team that, like, there's some young talent there, and they got some speed.
Yeah, I mean, again, the first goal that Wolf gives up, it's a clean, unscreened shot on an odd man opportunity for the Ducks. It's a save that he has made at times this season, but at the same time, it is a perfectly placed shot, and it's a shot that I don't blame him for giving up. And then from there, he's perfect. I mean, he stops 31 of 32. He did his job to a T, and I get it. It's a weaker opponent in Anaheim, but at the same time, you got to make these saves. It's not easy in this league, and for Wolf, he's continuing to make it look easy. The point that Pinder and I were making the other night is that with Wolf, the game like the one that he just had in his last game is the outlier, where he loses and he gives up more goals than he's accustomed to. And with Vladar, the game that he has against the Blues, where he gives up only 2 goals, that's the outlier. That's sort of where this lies. That's the difference between these two goaltenders. And tonight, it's Dustin Wolf being overshadowed by a lot of things. I mean, what are you gonna do, right? Dustin Wolf is the 4th biggest story tonight, I would say, maybe 3rd or 4th.
It's a long tier list tonight.
And on another night, Flames
Maybe that's
Ducks.
why Matt Coronado isn't smiling in his hat trick picture that the Flames posted.
Yeah, the Flames still haven't announced this deal. They just tweeted out Maddie's first NHL Hattie, and he looks a little forlorn because I think Jacob Pelche's stall is right next to his, or was right next to his in the locker room. But yeah, just crazy night on a lot of fronts.
Pike Bomb Conroy scheduled to speak with the media momentarily, so we might get confirmation in just a moment here. We're going to stay tuned to see what Pike is able to bring us. The other thing maybe that we can touch on while we're waiting for that, obviously Calgary's defense looking a little different again tonight. Ty Barry remains in the lineup. What did you think of the shakeups there?
I thought it worked. I thought the Flames did a relatively good job defending their own zone. The expected goals tonight ended up relatively even. The chances relatively even, 24-23 at 5-on-5. But ultimately, they didn't get run out of the building, right? Wolf had a lot to do, but it wasn't like they were constantly being exposed. I think Tyson Barrie is still getting back up to speed, but I thought he was acceptable in the game. I thought, the Uyghur pairing had a very good night. They both were up over 80% expected goals, I believe. So really, not a night to complain about. A game that I think the Flames can be very happy with, especially, I think we were discussing this off mic, a game where you might think the players would get distracted. We don't know.
How could you not?
Do the players know any of this stuff as it's going down? I know on the Flyers side of things, their game ended earlier, and I forget who it was who was addressing the media. It might have been Konechny who said they didn't know anything that was going on during the game. I think that might be some first class. BS.
I was waiting for the armchair lip readers at home to start getting to work.
Yeah.
At every shot on the bench, but that's good for the Flames to be able to stay focused through that. I almost wonder if it was a topic of conversation in the Ducks dressing room.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Let's get on these guys. They might be frazzled after all this stuff going on. It's easy to hypothesize. It's easy to speculate, but the Flames just confirmed to Eric France the trade call has been completed. The deal is still not posted. And Kadri's already commented on it. He said, it's never easy watching guys you form bonds with leave the dressing room. Succinctly put.
Yep. Thanks to Jeremy in the super chat. How much do you guys think the Flames will miss the energy and the bucket misses? Kisses? Perhaps from Peltz.
Yeah, the bucket kisses.
I liked that celebration even more than the Rasmus Anderson stare down. So I think that's a guy who has made an impact on Flames fans in a relatively short time in the city. He'll get cheers when he plays his next game in Calgary.
He was a great player to watch.
I remember after his first season, seeing videos come out of him and some of the other young Flames dancing on the stage at Cowboys and just having a ball.
Yeah.
And it was just after that season, it was just fun to see players enjoying themselves and having fun again. It didn't feel all doom and gloom. So if anything, Flames fans can always be thankful to Peltier for being part of this wave of youth that made what was supposed to be a painful season a lot more bearable, and frankly see the team put in a little bit of a tough spot about whether they go for playoffs or not.
Well, I think what Peltier deserves a lot of credit for, and this is maybe something that's gone under the radar a little bit, but the last 4 or 5 years, the Flames have developed one of the strongest farm systems in the league. It's just a fact. And it was something that the previous 10 or 15 years had been a real weakness, I would say, for the organization, where they really struggled to promote guys out of wherever the affiliate was playing. And I think that instability had something to do with it as well, whether it was in Quad City or Abbotsford or Adirondack. But in the final years in Stockton and then coming here to Calgary, there has been so much improvement in the way that players have developed. And I think part of that comes down to the organization prioritizing it maybe a little bit more, but part of it comes down to the establishment of a really strong winning culture down there. And Jacob Peltier played an enormous role in that. Those of you who kept tabs on the team when they were in Stockton, their final year in Stockton, they were an amazing team. They went 45-16-7. They made it all the way to the conference finals that year. Their top line was great. Peltier was instrumental in ushering guys in that league, guys like Connor Zary, guys like Marty Pospisil who have come up to the NHL. That team was just so much fun. That team, the contingent of players has continued to dwindle who are still remaining. Walker Dewar obviously being claimed off waivers, Adam Ruzicka going overseas, now Pelche being gone, Kirkland being injured. But he really helped usher in what has continued to be a very strong era of farm level hockey for the Flames organization. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
No vowels in this name in the chat. Keep making trades like this. Be hard to draft forever. Flame Gavin McKenna. Just a heads up.
Not this year.
No, not this year. Not eligible until 2026, but he's 2 points away from his 200th career point. Just put up a hat trick, including his first 2 shorthanded goals in the WHL on Wednesday against the number 1 team in the league standings. Yeah. 24-game point streak. Watch Gavin McKenna. Watch him. Jeremy, can we see a judo flip? I'm kidding, Mike.
Wow.
Are we keeping a running tab?
I know Ryan Pike.
I'm coming off the walking pneumonia, but I still feel strong. I still feel limber. I think I could still toss you.
She could. I'll just leave it at that. I know Pike really wants to see it. We'll do it. We'll do it eventually.
Guys, just stick around next time. I actually thought we were supposed to do a show together recently, and then you booked it off, and I thought that was why.
No, God, no.
We have actually taken a look around the rest of the studio to see
where the best space would be.
Yeah, if space permits. We have enough cushions here. There's a landing pad. So you keep those super chats coming and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, no, Cami could definitely pick me up. She can. We've
already tried that the day of the drinking show.
That's right.
Yeah.
You were talking about the CHL there for a second. I just want to bring it up very quickly. Really interesting game tonight, or today, I should say, in the Ontario Hockey League. It was the Kingston Frontenacs against the Saginaw Spirit. And if that's not immediately apparent to you why that's interesting from a Flames perspective, it's because 2 of their top prospects and 2 of their 2024 draft picks were going head-to-head in Zane Parekh and Jacob Battaglia. Both of them got on the score sheet. Jacob Battaglia ends up being named the first star of that game with 2 goals and 3 assists, as well as a +2 rating in a 9-5 win for Kingston. But Parekh gets on the board a goal and an assist. He's now up to 61 points in 40 games this season for the number 9 overall pick. So good stuff coming out of the OHL today.
Actually, if we're going to talk about OHLers,
yes,
Hunter Brustevich was a key part of the Andrei Kuzmenko trade
right.
and the Lindholm trade.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, we really got to get you that trade tree now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back a while because you think about it. Dougie, they trade a first-round pick for him. Ferland was their own pick. Fox, I don't remember if they acquired that pick in a previous deal, but yeah, it goes back a ways. It goes back to at least 2011-ish. When they first picked Ferland, and I don't know if it extends beyond that, but yeah, certainly an ever-developing tree for the Flames because it also includes Hanifin, Miramanov, the first-round pick they got there. It's expansive for sure.
I have heartbreaking news.
Let's hear it.
We have a scoring change.
Uh-oh.
It is no longer a hat trick for Matt Coronado.
Oh, really?
Blake Coleman now getting credit for the first goal. That'll stand as his 12th of the year. And Coronado's 14th assist of the season. That sucked. That really puts a damper on the night.
They'll have to delete that tweet now. That's
a
shame.
I'm going to put Yasmin to work re-editing this whole podcast. We're going to need the Siri voice. I'm not a young star's first 2-goal game.
Yeah, I think we might have official confirmation. The Flyers might have tweeted it out. Yes, they have. Okay, so official confirmation. Nothing we don't already know, but it does confirm it is only a 2-team deal, and it is. The Philadelphia Flyers announced they have acquired forwards Andrei Kuzmenko and Jacob Pelche, as well as a 2nd-round pick in the 25 draft and a 7th-round pick in the 28 draft from the Calgary Flames in exchange for Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost, according to Danny Briere. No quotes in that press release on the Flyers' end, and I would imagine the Flames will be coming out with a press release of their own very shortly. So it is official. The deal has been codified. The call is done, and Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost are members of the Calgary Flames.
Just stop saying consummated.
Consummated. I think I said codified.
You said that earlier.
Did I?
Pender.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird word.
See, moist doesn't bother me. I always say I'm doing moist January. Not full dry, just a touch.
And I believe
So that one doesn't bother me, but every time I'm like, the trade's been consummated, I'm like, that sounds like something out of Elizabethan England.
And I believe Craig Conroy is now speaking to the media. So I will continue to sort of scan for any pull quotes as we continue to go on here.
Well, as we wait for those quotes, why don't you take us through what lies ahead for the Calgary Flames with 2 new players in the lineup potentially as soon as this weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. The road ahead just got even more fascinating from a Flame standpoint, and it is brought to you by Platinum Mitsubishi, the good folks up there, 2720 Barlow Trail Northeast, home of the Outlander PHEV and the Eclipse Cross and a bunch of other vehicles. And it's also home of the 10-year, 160,000 kilometer powertrain warranty. I made the joke on the last show that I know they liked up there at Platinum, that warranty extends even longer than Jonathan Huberdeau's contract. And it does.
I thought you were going to say it was the home of you.
Well, it is the home of me, but
he just curls up in the trunk of a very nice car.
Yeah.
Until we got to bring him out for the next afterburner.
Well, I was there watching the first period tonight. I had the night shift and I was sort of following along the trade as it was going down. And thankfully there was nobody at the showroom tonight. So it was easy to sort of follow along as it was going down. But yes, up at Platinum Mitsubishi, 2720 Barlow Trail Northeast. The road ahead is going to be very interesting because we don't know what the lineup is going to look like for these next 4 or 5 games, rather. We don't know, for example, whether the Flames are going to be in a position to bring Farabee and Frost into their lineup when they return to action against the Detroit Red Wings on February the 1st. They do have a back-to-back, and it is the Red Wings and then Seattle. It's sort of a one at home, one on the road, so it'll be quick travel for the Flames to get out of town. And then a couple of difficult games, at least on paper, after that. Toronto and Colorado both visiting the Saddledome. So we'll see if Dustin Wolf will maybe get a chance to face off against one of those teams or maybe both.
It'd be really interesting to see. I mean, people always get out to see Cale Makar and the new look Avalanche.
That's right. Yeah.
But I also hear tell that the Avalanche are not done mixing and matching as we get closer to the trade deadline.
That Calgary, Colorado deal game is going to be a game between 2 teams that just pulled off crazy big trades. And isn't that going to be something, a deal or a game that does not look like we might have expected it to when we first sort of saw it coming up on the horizon? It will be Martin Necas and the Colorado Avalanche up against Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, and the Calgary Flames. And we don't know exactly how it's going to play out with Frost. He did leave today's game early, and it was something where it wasn't expected. I believe Farabee wasn't in the lineup to begin with. I believe he might be injured currently. So it's something where we don't exactly know when these 2 players will be making their Flames debuts. But either way, Farabee was in the lineup tonight, but Frost was not. Farabee played, I believe, 17-ish minutes. Frost, of course, was the early departure. So Frost, we don't know exactly what it's going to be like in terms of him making his Flames debut, but probably good money on it being at some point in the next 5 games.
Kick Jesus, fried Christ. We don't talk like that here. Get him out.
No kidding.
Yeah, no. Looking at 2 of those matchups, Toronto on a big slide, lost 3 in a row. That'll be entertaining to see. And the West, it's tight. It's you mentioned that you thought that Utah and St. Louis are out of the mix as it stands now. Calgary 3 points behind Colorado with some games in hand, just 1 behind LA for that 3rd spot in the Pacific. LA 2-7-1 in their last 10 now.
They're falling fast, and they just got Drew Doughty back, and it didn't seem to help them the other night. He had a rough sort of night getting back into it. The Kings lost again tonight, 3-0 at the hands of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And if we're on the out of town, the team that at Calgary is playing next, Detroit, actually just beat Edmonton in a shootout tonight. So good news there. Edmonton blows a 2-0 lead and ends up falling in a shootout. So the Red Wings will be riding high as they come into Calgary in a couple days' time.
You just sounded a little gleeful about that.
A little gleeful
45
there.
Saves for Alex Lyon.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah, Conroy is indeed speaking to the media. He just told the assembled contingent down at the Saddledome when he broke the news to Jacob Pelche. He was emotional. Conroy himself, he felt emotional for him. I think they both understand what an energy boost Pelche has been to this Flames team. And it's not something you can easily replace. I think if Conroy could have gotten this deal done without Pelche, my speculation is he probably would have loved to. But probably a sticking point on the Philly end, and it'll be tough to lose Pelche, but it's part of the business.
Yeah, quote that Eric Francis posted, I definitely wanted to give the team something, a boost, a shot in the arm. These two players do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's absolutely true. I think they are two players who I think if you had said at the beginning of the season the Flames have interest in these players, I think people would have been, very very excited by that. I think they would see them as players who match with the makeup of this team. And the fact that the Flames only have to give up a second round pick, and the two players they give up are players who have very easy definable flaws. Not saying that is an indictment on either of them, but players who, in terms of their perceived value, I wouldn't have been surprised to see the Flames, if they traded each of them individually, not get much for them. And it's just tough to say, but it's the truth. I mean, Kuzmenko has a big contract. Pelche was available for free and there were no takers. It's a deal that from Conroy's perspective probably felt like a gimme, a no-brainer. You got to do this.
Will Tortorella put an end to the kiss? Hey, maybe, but I have a feeling that Peltier will just keep on keeping on. Lest we forget, he survived a less than emphatic start under Daryl Sutter.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Tortorella has shown some signs of changing his approach a little bit, changing the way that he handles younger players. I have been extremely impressed with the way that he has handled Matvei Michkov at points this season. Just the way that he has laid out his thought process, the way that he genuinely seems to be taking that player's best interests to heart. I know they had a bit of a disagreement tonight. Tortorella and Michkov did, that ended in Michkov being benched for a lot of that game. But I think Tortorella is going to really like Pelche's vigor and his passion for the game. I mean, in terms of just personality, it reminds me a little bit of Matt Zuccarello, just the way that he sees the game and has that demeanor. And Zuccarello is a guy who came into the league under Tortorella as a younger guy, a smaller guy, and really found his footing. And so I really do hope
players get on Tortorella's good side, he goes to bat for them.
Absolutely.
He'll cause a stink that makes himself look like a fool just to take some heat off of his players.
Absolutely. I agree. The fit I'm really curious about is Kuzmenko. I have no idea, and Frank called it a shot in the dark on Philly's end. How that player is going to do, I'm so curious to see how that goes.
Who knows?
No idea. No idea whatsoever.
Yeah, that is going to be fascinating. This is going to be probably the first time I've gone out of my way to watch Philadelphia hockey in a while to see how that pans out.
And the interesting angle is that the Flames and Flyers almost never make deals. They did at the draft. They made a pick swap, but it's a pick swap. I have to go back before that to 2013 to find the last time the Flames and Flyers made any sort of deal.
Yeah, strange that they have more trades with division opponents.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, you think about it, and Philadelphia and Calgary, two teams that sort of have very similar histories, championships a while ago, decades ago, sort of always upstaged a little bit by their in-province or in-state rivals who had all the generational lottery luck and all that stuff. And they've sort of had the more lunch pail approach to building their teams. And it's strange that they wouldn't be on the same page more often in terms of hooking up deals. But I mean, they do have some history. The Brad McCrimmon trade back in the 80s was a huge deal for Calgary, got them that solidified top four to win the Stanley Cup. And McCrimmon was a future captain for the Flames. But there's really not a whole lot. I mean, the Flames acquired Dean McCammond from the Flyers back in 01. There's not a whole lot to go back on in terms of Flames Flyers trade history. Might actually go into that tomorrow at Flames Nation. So keep an eye out for an article on that.
More stuff coming out of Craig Conroy's press conference from the Ed Whalen room at the Saddle Dome. Doesn't sound like this has been a long time coming. It sounds like the deal mostly came together today.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, the way that it came together, you'd think that if this was a deal that was long gestating, and this was a deal that was in the can for a while, and they were waiting on approvals and waiting on everybody to get their heads straight, you'd think they would announce it on an off day or something. You'd think they would announce it in such a manner that wouldn't conflict with both teams actively playing at the time that the reports are starting to come out. That to me suggests maybe an impulsive move on Philly's end, a move that is intended to give their team a wake-up call a little bit, intended to sort of stem the recent slide that they've been on, which has been quite the slide. To me, it seems like Calgary being on the receiving end of maybe a panic trade on the Flyers end. So we'll see.
It's funny. It's a big slide for the Eastern Conference, sure, but this is still Philadelphia is still a 500 club, not too far out of
They
a
had
playoff race,
they had a
but
nice
they would
start.
they would be ahead of Utah and St. Louis if they were in the West.
Craig Conroy says the plan is for Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost to both make their Flames debuts on Saturday at the Saddledome against the Red Wings. So we'll have to find out what their jersey numbers are going to be.
You love some jersey numbers.
I love jersey numbers.
You know what we need? We need an NHL version of the movie Draft Day.
Yeah, maybe that's what this trade was.
Morgan Frost, no matter what.
Morgan Frost, no matter what. Give me a 7th round pick because I feel like it. That's really the only explanation for why a 2028 7th round pick is in this deal. It's just so funny to me.
And thank you to Richard in the super chat. In Conroy, we trust. Some of his trades were panned at the start of his tenure, but a lot of them look like they've been working out pretty well so far, especially if we get to see more of Kevin Ball once he's back in the lineup, because I think that one has panned out real nicely so far.
Hear me out. I like the idea of Farabee and Frost, starting together on the same line with Yegor Sharangovich. I think that's the line that I would start out with, because I think Yegor has struggled a little bit, and hasn't had the line mates necessarily that complement him the right way. I mean, it's difficult when you're playing on a line with Adam Klapka and Marty Pospisil. I just don't think that's the right fit for a player like that. I think putting him on a line with the two Flyers, boy, 3 players acquired in very similar fashions, and 3 players who I think could really mesh well together. I'm really excited to maybe see that.
Could be a new wave of young Calgary hockey players hitting the ODR, pretending to be Frost or Farabee the way they used to pretend to be a Johnny Tkachuk.
This is
a Bennett, but
it's fascinating.
On the topic, I want to thank Booster Juice for being a proud puck partner at the Jasper Pond Hockey Tournament earlier this month. They are powered by Booster Juice. Had to keep the boys alive somehow up there, but you can visit a location today to refuel, refresh, and re-energize, and download their new Booster Rewards app to earn, order, and enjoy. Yeti was also huge up there. They took care of the guys with the mugs, the coolers, chairs, blankets, a tent, and it was chilly. And the coolers in here, I think that cooler is nicer than my first vehicle was.
It's bright red.
It's beautiful.
I mean, it's a bright red cooler.
I know. I want to steal it.
Pinder showed it to me after the last show, and I was like, oh my goodness. I didn't know they made them in that shade.
Right.
Like it is very flamesy red. And it's a nice prize.
It is flames red. Yeah. We need the Pantone code for those.
That's right.
Anyway, yeah. So shout out to Yeti for keeping the Afterburner Pale Ales crispy up in here. Crave the cold and extend your ice time with hard-hitting gear that's built to honor the toughest sport on earth. Built for the wild. All right, let's take a look at what's on the docket for tomorrow. I think you were looking at Bet365.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not exactly sure what we've got pulled up for Bet365, but I know there is a bit of a smaller slate of games on tomorrow. Yeah, there they are. Nashville. Oh boy, some real barn burners here. Nashville, Buffalo, Vancouver, Dallas. I mean, that's the Vancouver Dallas game is the one that I think I'd be the most intrigued by. That's going to be a real tough outing for Vancouver going into Dallas, playing that game against the Stars team that has always been a tough out. Blues, Avs, who cares? Sorry. And then Utah hosting Columbus, a game between a couple of surprising teams, but we'll see what happens out of that one. Utah, hey, we should have the betting odds up for what their new name will be. I do like the.
Oh my gosh, they got bullied out of
Wasatch.
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing. I don't hate the idea behind it, but I think it's just too regional. I think people would be very confused by it. They would say, "What's a Wasatch?" They would call them the Utah "What's That's."
The Calgary Yamnuskas.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the equivalent, right? Like the Calgary.
The Calgary Eeyore.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I mean, it sums up the last couple decades for this team.
Wow. Cami's a real joke teller there. But no, it's
Just trying to spin a yarn.
Yeah. But like I think Utah Outlaws is actually pretty good. I think it rolls off the tongue. I think it's funny.
As long as it doesn't look exactly like the Brooks Bandits jerseys.
Yeah.
Because I was also kind of concerned when we saw Mammoth.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I'm like, this looks like Winnipeg Ice jerseys.
I'm not a huge fan of singular names, and I don't like that they would be in proximity to the Colorado Mammoth, who are in the National Lacrosse League. I think that would just be confusing. Like when you have the Cardinals, like the St. Louis Cardinals and the Arizona Cardinals, they're not that close, and the Giants are at the opposite ends of the country. I think having two mammoths that close together would be just confusing. I like Outlaws. I mean, it does. I agree with Yuri in the chat. It sounds a little arena football. It reminds me a little bit of the what was the Vegas ECHL team that Derek Engelland played for? It was the Vegas. I have one of their jerseys. I should know this. It might have been the Vegas Outlaws, but I do like it. I think it's a name that rolls off the tongue. I do kind of like the Utah HC name, the hockey club name. I kind of like it just for how bad it is.
It's half of soccer.
Yeah. That is true. So we'll see.
I actually don't think HC itself is that bad. I think Outlaws is the best one there. I was thinking when you guys were saying arena football, Mike Sweeney, not Gould, very arena football, very XFL. Yeah. I still want to see an NHL game with all nicknames on the nameplates.
Yeah. Oh,
but
God.
Something has to be as good as He Hate Me.
Yeah. He Hate Me. The Vegas ECHL team was actually the Wranglers. How did I not clue that? I should have known that. Derek Engelland played for them. But yeah, no, really curious to see. I would bet on Utah losing to Columbus tomorrow, though. So there, go bet with that with Bet365. Use that promo code NATION.
Yeah, it is right up there. World's largest sports betting platform. You can open an account today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. I think the bubonic plague has settled into my lungs again. So we're going to do some questions and comments, and then we're going to wrap it up, folks.
I've been on the air for almost like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Congratulations. I'm almost going to have to take the crappy advice from the guys earlier today and drink olive oil.
Yeah, like I think we both need to wrap this up. Let's
do a couple here. Okay, will losing their second round pick prevent the Flames from potentially tendering an offer sheet in the summer?
No, if they do it after the draft, which is typically when you see that sort of stuff happen. So if it's after the draft, the offer sheet requirement will be with the 2026 picks. And that's what we saw with the Holloway Broberg thing. They gave up 25 picks. That's the situation. If the Flames see an RFA this summer that they like, as far as I know right now, they still have all their 26 picks. I guess there is sort of the contingency with the whole Monahan condition, but I think that will be resolved by this year's draft. It will almost certainly be resolved. And if that is the case, they should be just fine for their 26 picks. They have all their 26 picks. And they also have an additional first from Vegas and a third from Vancouver. So it shouldn't be a problem at all.
All right. We got a couple more here. Do you think Conroy should trade Vladar for Grubauer and eat his contract for some assets and let Grubauer and Cooley battle for the backup job in training camp? All right. So Grubauer, he's 33 now. He just cleared waivers earlier today. He's on a 6-year, $35.4 million. Or that was his old contract.
Yeah, no, he makes $5. Well, he's still on that contract. But it's not a good contract, and it's arguably one of the worst contracts that's been handed out in the cap era. Grubauer has not had a save percentage above 900 with Seattle. His highest save percentage has been 899 last year, and this year he's at 866.
And he was so nasty with Colorado before that. I had him in my hockey pool that year, and I mean, he was one of those goalies that you pick not because you think they're a great goalie, but it's like he is on Colorado. He is going to get wins, and he got a lot of shutouts too.
I don't know if there's any appetite from Calgary to take on that contract without any a huge sweetener coming from Seattle. And I don't know if Seattle necessarily has that urgency, but maybe they do. They could potentially use another goaltender. Their guy who they called up to back up Joey Decord is a player who I know a lot of players. I have never heard of this player, Alish Steska. who has never played in an NHL game, and he's already 28 years old. He was a 4th-round pick of Minnesota 10 years ago. Seems to have good Czech League stats, but and decent stats in the American League, but I don't know if he's the guy who they want to rely as their backup behind Joey Decord. And I will grant that Vladar is one of the few goaltenders in the league this year with better numbers than Grubauer. Not difficult to do. Grubauer is an .866 save percentage this year, which is probably the worst I've ever seen for a goaltender more than 20 games in a season, going back the last 30 years. I don't know if there's ever been one worse. So
it might just be more beneficial for the Flames to weaponize the cap space.
I mean, you can maybe try
on a guy like that.
You can maybe try, but I don't know if Seattle's going to give up what Calgary would need.
All right, let's do one more, and then we'll call it a night here, folks. Question, Mike and Cami, what do you think Conroy could do next?
I think they will continue with the plan of dealing certain guys who are on expiring deals, like Rooney and Hanley potentially, while continuing to make deals like the one that we just saw potentially. I mean, I would be curious to see if they could swing a deal for a defenseman that's similar in pedigree and age to these guys. I think to the deals that have gone down recently.
Because it feels like everybody on that D-core is basically a placeholder for the guys coming up in a year
potentially.
Or two.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I almost wonder if maybe the next move, it is a good point. I almost wonder if the next move is maybe to bring up one of the incumbents in the American League on defense before you make a deal like that. But I do think that's a potential move that we could see, because I think what the Flames have learned this season is what their defenders are. Miramonov doesn't look like he's it. Bean looks passable. A guy like Ball looks good, but he's hurt right now, and we don't know exactly when he'll be back. So I do think there's potentially an opening there for swinging a deal for a left shot defenseman, especially if they were to maybe move one of the players who they have on the farm, because they've got just so many defensemen down there as well. Guys who sort of fill similar voids like Poirier and Brustevitz, Kuznetsov and Grushnikov and Solovyov. There's too many guys for not enough spots. So I could see something like that, but I don't know. He surprised me tonight, and I think he'll surprise me again.
I think that seems like a great place to leave it. Big night in Flamesland. Morgan Frost, Joel Farabee, now members of the Calgary Flames, fan favorite Jacob Pelchier and Andrei Kuzmenko on their way to Philadelphia, along with a couple of picks not to overshadow a 4-1 win over the Anaheim Ducks. Matt Coronado robbed of his first NHL hat trick, but the Flames, as it stands, back in a playoff spot. Barn burner. Back tomorrow morning on location. We're not going to have Boom and Pinder together, so hopefully my voice heals up enough. So it's going to be me, Retro, and Pinder on location tomorrow.
We're not going to have Boom and Pinder together tomorrow? Wow, that'll surely fuel some speculation.
I mean, cue the "we were on a break" memes.
They're going to be fine.
But yeah, great job tonight doing 2 shows in
great
a
job
very
to you,
short
battling through
time.
Whatever you got going on.
I have the black lung. And thank you to all of you for being with us, listening to the information and the nonsense, mostly nonsense. But we love having you here all the time. We love your fun chats. Not the nasty one that makes Yasmin go to work. By the way, it's Yasmin with a Y. It's not Jasmine.
Yeah, it's Yasmin.
Yeah.
She's the best.
Yeah, we're a big fan of her. So thank you again, everybody. Barn Burner back tomorrow. We're going to break it down all over again with some even more insight and some clips, hopefully from the Flames, more from Conroy. But you enjoyed the rest of your night, because it has been a wild one. See you, folks.